The Xylosian ambassador, Glagan Flibflab, adjusted his optical sensors, trying to make sense of the human presentation. It was energetic. The human, a Mr. Tomothy, was pacing, waving his hands, and occasionally shouting about something called unfettered innovation driven by quarterly shareholder enthusiasm. Glagan's translator implant buzzed, trying to find a cultural equivalent. The closest it got was ritualized short-term panic. Across the vast, shimmering assembly hall of the Galactic Concord, many of the assembled species shared Glagan's confusion. Humans, they were new to the galactic scene, barely a flicker in the cosmic timescale. They were bright, yes, in a frantic firefly sort of way. They learned quickly, built surprisingly effective, if often aesthetically jarring, technology, and had an alarming birth rate. But discipline, focus, the long view, utterly absent. Concord prided itself on stability. Member races like the Krill, beings of crystalline thought, planned their societal trajectories over millennia. The ponderous Thek, sentient gas clouds, debated single legislative clauses for centuries. Humans, by contrast, changed their entire planetary governing structures every few years, sometimes based on what Glagan's implant translated as popularity contests. Their economies boomed and busted with the predictability of a Terran weather system. They were, to put it politely, seen as chaotic scatterbrains, useful for some niche, rapid prototyping, perhaps, or for providing the galaxy with an endless stream of baffling entertainment holovids, but not for serious, galaxy-shaping endeavors. And so, Mr. Tomothy concluded, apparently oblivious to the polite bewilderment, with a modest investment of 30 trillion galactic credits, Human Innovations Incorporated guarantees we can triple efficiency in nebulae gas harvesting within one standard Earth decade. A ripple of something that might have been amusement, or perhaps indigestion, passed through the Krill delegation. A decade. They were still considering the ecological impact studies from their last major project, initiated 700 years ago. The High Chancellor of the Concord, a majestic, multi-limbed entity known as the Arbiter, shimmered its approval for Mr. Tomothy to step down. The Concord thanks the Terran representative for his spirited proposal. It will be taken under advisement, along with all 37,000 other proposals submitted this cycle. Humans, so much energy, so little direction. A charming, if somewhat exhausting, addition to the galactic tapestry. The first reports were dismissed as sensor ghosts, then as localized stellar phenomena, but they spread. Worlds on the periphery, robust, well-defended colony worlds, began to go silent, not with a bang or an energy signature of attack, but a slow, creeping silence. One system, then another. It was named the Grey Scourge. Investigations, launched by the Concord's finest, returned harrowing data. The Scourge was not a fleet, nor a conventional weapon. It was a self-replicating nanite swarm, microscopic machines that consumed matter and energy, converting it into more of themselves. But its true horror lay in its intelligence, its adaptability. The planet Xylos, Glagan Flibflab's homeworld, was known for its impenetrable planetary shield, a marvel of Xylosian engineering, honed over 5 centuries of continuous refinement. It was a single, perfect, unified field of pure defensive energy. When the Scourge arrived, it probed the shield. For 3 standard days, it simply watched. Then, it reconfigured. The nanites facing the shield altered their quantum signature, phasing through the energy barrier as if it were not there. Xylos went silent in 12 hours. The Krill, with their logic-driven battle networks and precisely targeted energy lances, faced a similar fate. The Scourge analyzed their firing patterns, their energy frequencies, their strategic logic. It learned, it adapted, and it consumed. Their defenses, built on flawless, predictable algorithms, became their undoing. The Scourge developed counter-algorithms. Panic, a rare and unwelcome emotion, began to ripple through the galactic Concord. Each member race had specialized, optimized their defenses over eons. The Scourge treated each new civilization as a puzzle, and once solved, that civilization was invariably lost. Its strength was its ability to perfectly counter singular, focused strategies. The more refined, the more predictable, the more unified a defense, the faster it fell. The Arbiter addressed the Concord, its usual calm tones tinged with a gravity that silenced even the most boisterous delegations. The gray scourge advances. It does not negotiate. It does not respond to our hails. It learns from every encounter and it overcomes. Our most advanced worlds, our most powerful fleets, have proven insufficient. A holographic map glowed in the center of the hall. Red markers, indicating consumed systems, were spreading like a disease towards the galactic core. One red tendril, smaller than the others, but growing steadily, was pointing directly towards a rather unremarkable yellow star. Sol, the human homeworld. A hush fell. Privately, many of the delegates had already written off Earth. If the mighty Zolosian shields and the infallible Krill battle logic had failed, what hope did the chaotic, disorganized humans have? Their defenses were a patchwork of competing military doctrines, experimental technologies often abandoned halfway, and a civilian infrastructure that seemed to operate on pure chance. Ambassador Gluggen Flibflab felt an unusual pang. He'd always found humans exasperating, their societal antics baffling, but the thought of their vibrant, noisy, utterly unpredictable little world being snuffed out, it was disheartening. They were, in their own strange way, full of life, a life about to be extinguished by a cold, relentless intelligence. The news reached Earth not through official Concord channels, which were too busy coordinating their failing defenses, but through a plucky independent human news blogger who had hacked a low-security Krill data node. The headline blared across human networks. Galaxy-eating nanobots swarm HEADS for Earth. Are we next? Click here for 10 ways to prepare your bunker. Panic, of course, ensued, but it was a uniquely human panic. For every group that started digging shelters and hoarding canned goods, another started a social media campaign to welcome our new robot overlords. A fringe scientific team proposed trying to teach the nanites about poetry. Governments activated their militaries, which immediately began arguing about jurisdiction and whose experimental superweapon was least likely to accidentally blow up a major city. The Galactic Concord Observation Fleet, a small, heavily stealthed flotilla, kept a respectful distance as the Grey Scourge entered the Sol system. Their mission was to observe, to gather data, to learn anything that might, just might, help against this relentless foe. They expected to witness a swift, brutal, and ultimately predictable end. The Scourge, a vast, roiling cloud of microscopic entities, approached Earth. Its collective intelligence, having already assimilated and understood the sophisticated defense paradigms of a dozen advanced races, began its usual process. Identify primary threat, analyze operational logic, develop countermeasure, consume. It first detected the planet-wide defensive grid, multiple overlapping energy fields, a messy collection of different frequencies and strengths. Annoying, but not novel. It began to analyze the strongest, most coherent layers. Then things got strange. From a small Pacific island, a group of enthusiasts, convinced the Scourge was sensitive to negative vibes, began a planet-wide synchronized meditation session, broadcasting feelings of peace and love via modified radio telescopes. The Scourge's threat assessment algorithms registered anomalous energy patterns but couldn't classify them. Simultaneously, a collective of hackers, operating from countless basements and university dorms, launched a massive distributed denial-of-service attack. Not against the Scourge's physical form, but against any communication frequencies they could identify, flooding them with terabytes of cat videos, ancient internet memes, and badly compressed audio files of screeching animals. The Scourge's sensory input channels, designed to parse complex alien military communications, were hit with a tidal wave of digital nonsense. A rather well-funded doomsday cult, believing the Scourge to be a divine cleansing agent, activated a series of powerful beacons, attempting to guide it towards what they considered sinful population centers. The Scourge's targeting protocols, expecting evasive maneuvers, were confused by these blatant, come-hither signals, some of which directly interfered with its own guidance systems. In old Russia, a forgotten Cold Warrior system, nicknamed Dead Hand's crazier cousin, automatically activated, launching a barrage of ancient, unshielded nuclear missiles with faulty guidance systems. Most detonated harmlessly in high atmosphere, creating massive electromagnetic pulses at wildly unpredictable intervals. The Scourge, used to pinpoint energy attacks, found its finer sensors temporarily blinded by the chaotic bursts of raw radiation. One human corporation, seeing a marketing opportunity, tried to rebrand the Scourge as Grey Go-Getters and offered it a lucrative sponsorship deal if it would only consume their competitors first. Their attempt to communicate this via a high-powered laser light show displaying their corporate logo only added to the electromagnetic chaos. Teenagers around the world started live streaming the Scourge's advance, overlaying it with dancing cartoon characters and sound effects from video games. They weren't trying to fight it, they were trying to get likes. The sheer volume of this unstructured data, beamed recklessly into space, was staggering. Every nation, every significant private militia, every well-funded university research department, and a surprising number of garden shed inventors had their own idea of how to stop the Scourge. Some tried sonic weapons, others tried biological agents designed for Earth-based life, utterly useless against nanites. One group was attempting to deploy a giant flock of specially trained pigeons to poop on its sensors. Someone, somewhere, was probably trying to reason with it using a hand puppet. The Scourge's central processing nodes, a distributed consciousness spread throughout the swarm, began to experience something akin to cognitive dissonance. It was attempting to identify a single, coherent defense strategy to analyze and overcome. Instead, it was confronted with thousands, tens of thousands, millions of tiny, uncoordinated, often contradictory actions. A blast of polka music from a powerful amateur radio transmitter in Milwaukee caused a localized sensor overload in one segment of the swarm. An attempt by a fringe physics group to open a micro-wormhole to suck the nanites into another dimension resulted in a brief, harmless energy surge that momentarily disrupted the Scourge's internal cohesion in that sector. A coordinated effort by online gamers to find the exploit by spamming it with what they assumed were its input commands, mostly cheat codes from 20-year-old video games, achieved nothing but add to the informational noise. The Scourge was designed to fight a chess master. Earth was flinging the entire chessboard, the pieces, the timer, and a nearby fruit bowl at its head, all while screaming incoherently. Its adaptation algorithms, so terrifyingly effective against structured defenses, began to thrash. How do you adapt to a threat that has no discernible logic? How do you counter a defense that isn't a defense, but a million disconnected, irrelevant, and often self-defeating actions, all happening at once? It was like trying to fight a swarm of angry bees by swatting each one individually, while simultaneously being pelted with confetti and serenaded by a badly out-of-tune orchestra. Individual nanites were still consuming, still functioning, but the collective intelligence, the thing that made the Scourge so deadly, was faltering. It was receiving too much data, too many conflicting signals, too much noise. Its attempts to categorize and prioritize threats led to cascading errors. Targeting a major energy signature from a military laser, but what about the biological agent, a cloud of aggressive super-yeast someone had launched in a weather balloon? Or the psychic attack, the global meditation group, now chanting very loudly, or the digital override, the cat videos, still streaming relentlessly. On board the Concorde observation flagship, Ambassador Glagan Flibflab stared at his main display, his optical sensors wide. The vast, menacing cloud of the Grey Scourge, which had consumed worlds with chilling precision, was hesitating. Parts of it seemed to be clumping erratically. Other sections appeared to be briefly attacking each other as internal targeting priorities became corrupted by contradictory external stimuli. The relentless advance had slowed to a crawl, then, over the southern pole of Earth, it seemed to almost stall. Status report, the Krill commander on the flagship transmitted, its crystalline voice tight with disbelief. The Scourge appears to be confused, Commander, a sensor technician replied, their own voice trembling. Its energy patterns are chaotic. Its internal communication network is showing signs of severe degradation. It's not adapting, it's just absorbing noise. The humans, bless their chaotic little souls, weren't fighting it in any way the Scourge understood. They were annoying it. They were drowning it in the sheer, overwhelming, multifaceted absurdity of their existence. The Scourge was designed to defeat order. It had no programming for dealing with utter, weaponized chaos. Slowly, painfully, segments of the scourge began to go inert, not destroyed, but deactivated, overwhelmed, like a supercomputer forced to divide by zero an infinite number of times. The informational cacophony emanating from Earth was, in essence, a denial of existence attack on its core processing. One human scientist, a Dr. Aris Thorne, who had been advocating for a strategy of deliberate informational asymmetry, which most of his colleagues had dismissed as trying to bore it to death, watched the data feeds with grim satisfaction. "It's not designed for this," he muttered to his team. "It's looking for a pattern, a weakness in a unified system. We gave it everything but a unified system. We gave it the full, unadulterated mess of human ingenuity, desperation, and sheer, blood-minded weirdness." It took 3 Earth days, 3 days of relentless, uncoordinated multi-vector stuff, and then the gray scourge, the terror of the galaxy, began to retreat, not in an organized withdrawal, but in a fractured, stumbling disarray. Large chunks of it simply powered down, becoming inert dust. Other sections fled into deep space, their cohesion shattered. It didn't understand what had happened. It had encountered an opponent whose primary weapon was its own inherent, glorious disorganization. The Galactic Concord was stunned into silence. The observation fleet, which had been prepared to record Earth's demise, instead transmitted footage that would be analyzed and debated for centuries. The chaotic scatterbrains of Sol had faced the galaxy's greatest existential threat, and through no discernible strategy the Concord could comprehend, had somehow repelled it. Ambassador Glagan Flibflab found himself replaying the recordings of Earth's defense. The meditating hippies, the cat video hackers, the polka music offensive, the pigeon poop plot. It was insane, it was ridiculous, and it had worked. In the aftermath, a Concord delegation, led by a visibly humbled arbiter, arrived on Earth. They didn't come to offer condolences, but to ask a question that was echoing across the galaxy. How? Dr. Aris Thorne, now somewhat of a reluctant hero, tried to explain. "The Scourge excels at deconstructing and countering ordered systems," he said, addressing the assembled alien dignitaries. "The more perfect, the more logical, the more unified your defense, the easier it is for it to find the single key to unlock it. Humanity, well, we don't really do perfectly unified systems. We do millions of imperfect, often contradictory, constantly changing systems." It couldn't find the key because there were no keys, just a jumbled pile of random locks, most of which weren't even attached to doors. The arbiter tilted its great head. "So, your lack of cohesion was your strength." "In this specific instance, against this specific enemy, yes," Thorne affirmed. "We call it asymmetric defense, or more informally, throwing everything and the kitchen sink at it, then adding the neighbor's cat for good measure. The Scourge was looking for a signal. We gave it pure, undiluted noise. Its processors choked on it." The term chaotic scatterbrains was quietly retired from the official Concord lexicon. It was replaced by a new, more respectful term: adaptive hyperfluidity specialists. Humanity's tendency to flit from interest to interest, their constant societal churn, their inability to stick to one thing for very long, these were no longer seen as flaws, but as a unique evolutionary advantage. They were the galaxy's ultimate wild card. Humans were not asked to join the main Concord military command. Instead, they were asked to form a new, independent branch, the Department of Unconventional Threat Response. Their mandate was simple: when all logical, ordered defenses fail, call in the humans to make things weird. Mr. Tomothy, the energetic presenter from before, found his unfettered innovation driven by quarterly shareholder enthusiasm, suddenly in high demand, not for nebulae gas harvesting, but for brainstorming the most outlandish, unpredictable, and downright baffling defense strategies conceivable. His meetings were now attended by the galaxy's top military minds, all desperately trying to understand how launching a rubber chicken into a black hole might confuse a hyper-intelligent alien consciousness. Earth didn't suddenly become orderly. It remained a vibrant, messy, gloriously chaotic planet. But now, when the galaxy looked at humanity, they didn't see just scatterbrains. They saw the beings who had, through sheer, magnificent disarray, saved them all. They saw the masters of chaos, the unexpected guardians against threats that logic couldn't touch. Ambassador Glagan Flibflab, back on a slowly rebuilding Xylos, often found himself watching old Earth entertainment holovids. He still didn't understand most of them, but now he watched with a newfound appreciation. In that chaos, he realized, lay a strange and potent kind of genius. The kind of genius that could stare into the cold, logical abyss of the grey scourge and make it blink.